Man, when it was first announced that Tim Burton was going to make another Beetlejuice movie, my taint shriveled up just a little bit. The first Beetlejuice is an absolute classic, but it came out 36 years ago. If there had been an idea worthy of a sequel, you think it wouldn't have taken them this long to figure it out. Tim Burton is still a legendary director, but in my opinion, he hasn't made a good movie in about 20 years. Making a sequel to Beetlejuice now, it just felt like a shameless cash grab by all involved. But I'm happy to say that this movie is actually a really fun movie to watch. It's a complete mess of a movie, but it's entertaining, it's funny, and I enjoyed watching it with an audience. The story takes place with Lydia, her daughter Astrid, and her stepmother returning to Winter River for her father's funeral. Of course, nothing goes according to plan, and before you know it, Astrid gets trapped in the afterlife even though she's still alive. Which means that Lydia's got to rescue her daughter, but she needs help, which means making an alliance with her old adversary Beetlejuice, who is just as sleazy and conniving and funny as ever. And of course, he's got his own agenda that he needs the deets for. The performances are all great. Michael Keaton may be known more now for being a dramatic actor, but he slips back into the Beetlejuice role easily. Like it was only yesterday when he made the first movie. I loved all of his scenes, including the stuff with him working in his office with Bob and the other shrunken heads. I just wish he had more to do in the film. Winona Ryder does great work, as does Jenna Ortega as Lydia's daughter Astrid. I love that Lydia grew up to become like a gothic Miss Cleo. When the movie starts, both Lydia and Astrid are grieving after the death of Astrid's father, and they cope in different ways. Astrid becomes an obnoxious activist who assumes her mother's a fraud because she can't see the ghost of her father. Lydia by getting together with a sleazeball that's using her only for her money. So this leads to them both being estranged from one another. Catherine O'Hara also returns as Lydia's pretentious and delusional stepmother. She makes a meal out of her role and she chews up every scene she's in. I think a lot of people are going to call her the MVP of the movie. But to me, the scene stealer of the story is William Dafoe as Wolf Jackson. And that's such an awesome name. He plays a paranormal cop who is also a movie star when he's alive. He doesn't get a lot of screen time, but he's the highlight every time he shows up. And when the movie was over, it was his character I was thinking about the most. I doubt it happens, but I'd love to see his character get his own spin-off movie about him investigating crimes in the afterlife. Tim Burton did a great job directing the movie. The afterlife sets are all practical still. It's got the same look as the original movie. The visual effects and costumes of the character look is just as twisted and weird as the first movie. There's even stop-motion animation in it. This looks and feels like a classic Tim Burton movie from the 80s. And then there's the Danny Elfman score, which is great, of course. The movie's biggest problem is that it tries to cram way too many different storylines into its 104-minute runtime. The movie has 4 or 5 different plot lines that it keeps going back and forth between, and as a result, it feels like none of them really get the attention that they deserve. The main plot of saving Jenna Ortega from the afterlife doesn't really get going until about 45 minutes into the movie. Michael Keaton himself doesn't run into the main story until maybe 50 minutes into the movie, and he's the title character. The entire third act feels like it's on fast forward because they're trying to wrap everything up. Half of the storylines could have been easily edited out of the movie. The story with Justin Theroux's manipulative boyfriend character. All the weird focus on Jeffrey Jones' character as well, who isn't even in the movie for obvious reasons, but is instead replaced as a stop-motion character. Same thing for Monica Bellucci as Beetlejuice's murderous ex-wife. She gets a big introduction at the beginning of the movie and then she's barely in the rest. If they cut all of that extra nonsense, then the movie could have dedicated more time to the characters and the stories that actually mattered in the movie. Ultimately, is Beetlejuice 2 a great movie? No. Was a Beetlejuice sequel really needed? Not really. But like I said at the beginning, this is a fun movie. Seeing these actors return after all these years to reprise their iconic roles was a delight to watch. They're having fun, and I had fun watching them. And for that, I think this movie is definitely worth watching.